rather complex subject of the multiple brothers married to sisters and to two sisters, and then subsequent brothers, and when they were born, determining what their requirements and prohibitions are. So let's see, where do we pick up exactly? 27b, towards the bottom. Let's back up just a little bit to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines from the bottom, beginning of the line. So we had seen that Rabbi Yochanan said that if you have two brothers married to two sisters, then if and then then they die and there's another brother. Okay, so if Rabbi Yochanan says the second widow dies, so you can't marry, you can't, they're sisters, so you can't marry both of them, right? So, but what happens if one of them dies? So if the second one dies, then the first one is now permissible to the Yavam, to the third brother, okay? Because at the time that the first brother died, there was no way for Yibum to be accomplished, right? Because, no, not true. At the time the first brother dies, you could do Yibum, right? Because her sister is married to another brother, but that's okay. Two sisters can marry two brothers, right? Correct. So the third brother can marry the first widow, okay? What happens then? The second brother dies, so now you haven't done Yibum yet, so you've got two sisters, you have a problem, right? What happens if the second sister dies, though? So now the problem is removed, right? So now you have a Yibum responsibility to the first widow. She has no more sister, right? That she died. So it's fine. So you can do Yibum. But what about if the other way around? What if you've got the first widow and the second widow are sisters, and then so you can't do anything, right? Because they're two sisters. But now the first sister dies, the first widow dies, okay? Can you now marry the second sister? And the answer, according to Rabbi Yochanan, is no. Because even though she has no sister, there was a time when she was forbidden to him in Yibum because of when the first sister was still alive, okay? So,
yes.
And then Rav disagreed. Okay, so now let's pick up there. So Rabbi Yossi challenges Rabbi Yochanan about this. We have our Mishnah. Two married to two sisters. And then both of them, the first brothers died, the first two. Subsequent brothers can't marry them. They have to do chalitza because they're two sisters, right? But why should that be? Why doesn't one of the brothers do chalitza on the second widow? But to have a rishona l'gaveidach kivama shehutra v'nasra v'chazra v'hutra. So if you think that you can't, that once you've been in a problematic Yibum relationship, that it can't be consummated, then you're off the hook forever, right? But then 1 second. No. If you think that's not the case, if you think that it's that once the forbidding circumstance is removed, then it's okay. So then why don't you do that here, right? If you have a case where do chalitza to the second one, right? Now the first one is permitted again, right? So Tasulat Havarishon, she should go back to being permitted to do she's biblically permitted to do Yibum. So you should have to at least do chalitza for her. So he answered, I don't know what the Mishnah is talking about, right? So in other words, or I disagree with the Mishnah, right? Or I don't know whose opinion this is in the Mishnah. Like it's not. In other words, he's saying I don't buy this Mishnah. It doesn't add up, right? So the Gemara says, well, why don't you think it adds up? Why don't you answer as follows? Malay, but he could have answered instead, my chaltzos nami dekatane chaletzes chada. When the Mishnah means that not that you have to do chalitza with both of them, you do chalitza with one of them, and then the other one is, then that releases everybody, right? So the Gemara says, well, that's not what it says. Chaltzos katane, it says in plural. Malay, so you should answer, my chaltzos the alma. It means that that women like generally require chalitza, right? In other words, generally when they're two sisters, then they married to two brothers, you still require chalitza. But that's also not what the Mishnah says. Hooray, elu katayim. We're talking about this particular case, right? Both sisters are not. The Mishnah is talking about that they have to do chalitza. They could have answered the chalitza l'rishona b'reisha. Maybe could have answered that, oh, you know what the Mishnah's case is, when he had done chalitza already to the first widow and then the second brother died, right? But that's not the case. Chaltzos, the Mishnah says, no, in this case, both of them have to do chalitza. It's clearly referring to the case where, where brother one dies, brother two dies, nothing happened in between. And now you have the two sisters, right? And the Mishnah says you have to do chalitza. So why? So Rabbi Yochanan, the question is still to you, Rabbi Yochanan. Why do you think they have to do chalitza? Like you think that there's a case where the second sister dies, that the first one is now eligible again. So that's why Rabbi Yochanan had to answer, I don't know what this Mishnah is talking about. But the Gemara says further, Rabbi Yochanan could have answered, Gezerah, Dilma Kalim B'chalis L'Rishona B'Reisha. Maybe the reason that even after one brother does chalitza with the second widow, the other brother cannot marry the first widow in Yibum, because maybe the first brother will do chalitza with the first widow, right? That's definitely not, and then the other brother will take the second widow. That's definitely not allowed, because he was once forbidden to take her because of the sister thing. So that's why the rabbi said that both sisters should do chalitza, right? But if it happens that one of the brothers did chalitza with the second widow, then the other brother would really be able to take the first widow, right? Because that yibum that zika relationship has been dissolved. So Gemara says, katani. No, the Mishnah said you do chalitza and not yibum for both of them, right? So it's quite clear. Deleka the ein yibum hachakla. It's clear that there's no yibum applicable here at all. The Mishnah is quite clear. Like, stop trying to reinterpret it. So Rabbi Yochanan could have answered, what if one of the brothers dies? Then the Asur Levatel mitzvah is yavmit. So if one of the brothers dies, so then any brother cannot marry both of these sisters, right? But one can marry one sister, one can marry the other sister. Well, if there's only two brothers left and one of them dies, then you're leaving out you have to leave out one of the women. So maybe that's why the rabbis say definitely everybody do chalitza, right? Because there's a possibility, you don't want to leave open the possibility that one of these women will be left out in the cold. Okay, if a surviving brother dies. So Gemara says, that's not a concern. That's too far-fetched. Right? He's not worried about another brother dying. Although you have to look at these cases, people are dying all over the place. Right?
Jesus.
Yeah,
something's not good there.
Mention once in a while, like, this is classic Gemara stuff, because it's testing the limits of the rules. I don't think it's really envisioning cases, where somebody marries their grandmother or whatever, right?
It's true that there's a saying that we build Judaism, we build walls upon walls upon walls, so we never get close to that the real issue. We remove all the obstacles, so to speak.
Yeah, so I think it's really a case of kind of, the way we experience it is these are all like logical conundrums. How can you figure out a case? So that's exactly what they're doing, right? They're trying to test the limits and thereby establish exactly what the rules are
Right.
in all cases. Okay, so Rabbi Yochanan is not worried about somebody dying. So he could answer as follows: Rabbi Eliezer, oh, you know what? Like, don't say I don't know who this mission is. This is clear who this mission is. This mission is like Rabbi Eliezer. Why? Rabbi Eliezer said, "Yamar kevan she'amda love sha'achas be'isur." As long, if the woman was ever forbidden to become his yavam, right, his yavama, for whatever reason, for relationship reasons, natural love that never can be repaired. Once she's forbidden to him, even if the obstacle goes away, i.e., her sister dies or her sister marries one of the other brothers, still we don't remove he's still forbidden, and that's Rebbe Lazar's opinion. So say that this Mishnah is like Rebbe Lazar. Don't say, I don't know who said this Mishnah. So we're asking me to say for Rebbe Lazar, Rebbe Lazar, because the end of our Mishnah, Rebbe Lazar objects to something in the Mishnah, right? You remember Rebbe Lazar says, no, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel had an argument about this, right? So clearly Rebbe Lazar was not the author of the beginning of the Mishnah, right? So you can't answer that. Okay, he could have answered denafel b'vasachas. What if both sisters became widowed at the same time? Right? There was, God forbid, I don't know, an airplane accident or something, right? So they became widows at the same time. So then you don't know, then there's no first or second. So Rabbi Yossi Aglili, and Rabbi Yossi Aglili says that there can be such a thing. Like there's no, this is another philosophical question, can two things happen at the exact same instant? Is it measurable? So you could say no, like there's always, that nothing happens at the exact same instant. You can keep slicing time so that event A happened before event B, not at the same time. But Rabbi Yossi says, no, you can't say things happen exactly at the same time. So if that's the case, then, so in such a case, if there's no first, then you can never remove that obstacle, right? Like each one became forbidden at the same time as the other one. They became a sister of a zakuka at the same time as the other one did. So that's why they have to stay always forbidden to do yibum rabbinically. Okay, so maybe that could be Rabbi Yochanan's explanation of the Mishnah. Oh, you know why the Mishnah said that? Because it may be referring to a case where they both died at the same time. So Gemara says, "Lo sasam latana Rabbi Yossi Aglili." No, we never. An anonymous opinion in the Mishnah is never that of Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Okay, new rule, right? You can't say this anonymous Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi Aglili. We never do that. And the note here explains that actually the reason for that is that Rabbi Yossi Aglili, he wasn't so, they didn't like his opinion so much. Like we rarely rule like Rabbi Yossi Aglili, but we usually rule like an anonymous Mishnah, right? If something is anonymous, then that is assumed to be the standard, right? So since we don't hold a lot of stock in Rabbi Yossi Aglili's opinions, I hope he will forgive me for putting it that way. Then we never attribute a stam mishnah, an anonymous mishnah to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, because that would give him too much authority. Okay, so last try, the Gemara V'lei he could have answered, Rabbi Yochanan could have answered, maybe we don't know which one died first. Again, go to the airplane accident or something, right? Somebody, they both died on the same day, but you don't know which one died first. Or, it doesn't have to be an accident. It could be you got the news, one's living in New York and one's living in Boston, and you get a phone call the same day, but there's no exact time of death established. So if that case, so that would explain why, since you don't know, so you have to be concerned for either possibility, and that's why neither one can ever marry or do yibum with the other. The Mishnah says if they went ahead and married them, right, then they have to divorce them, right? Bishlama Rishana. So I understand the first one has to get divorced. Amrina Leiman Shaila. Could we say, like, who told you to go ahead and marry her? You weren't supposed to marry her. You also had a Zika relationship with the other sister. Once he did do the yibum for her, right? Then the other brother is free to do the yibum on the second sister. right? The second brother can say, okay, I've got the Zika relationship is not a problem anymore because my brother did Yibum, right? I have no longer any connection to his now wife, right? There's still this other wife, the sister. I can marry her, right? So if that's the case, if one second. So since the Mishnah doesn't say that, since the Mishnah says that they both have to divorce their Yibum wives, it's not talking about such a case, right? If it were talking about such a case, it wouldn't say both of them have to divorce the wives, right? It therefore can't be talking about such a case. So therefore, that's why Rabbi Yochanan says, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand this Mishnah. I don't know who said this Mishnah. It doesn't add up according to any of the opinions I know and according to how it's presented. Okay, fine. We'll move on to another case, which is not any easier, but at least it's different. So now, we have our Mishnah. So the two brothers married to the two sisters, and the two sisters have a relationship such that you can't marry both of them, right? An Erva relationship. They're blood relations. So Asur ba u'materes ba'chosa. Sorry, I misstated. No, this is not the two sisters anymore. Two brothers are married and they die. What if you are okay to do Yibum with one of the widows, but not okay to the other widow because she's your mother-in-law or something like that? Okay, so you have a problem with only one of the widows. Okay, so you can't do Yibum with that one, but you can do Yibum with the one that you don't have a relationship with. But the second brother can't marry either of them because one second. Sorry, we are talking about sisters, right? We're talking about two sisters, but one of the sisters you have you have a relationship with. She's your mother-in-law or something. Okay, so you can marry since one of them you don't even have a Zika relationship with because she's your mother-in-law, then the other one is okay, right? The only time you have a problem is if you have a Zika relationship with both of them, and so the other one is the sister of your Zika. Okay, but here, because of the Erva relationship with one of them, there's no Zika, there's no relationship there at all. That requires Yibum or Chalitza. So the other one, but what about another brother, right? There's another brother that there's the two sisters, and neither of them is his mother-in-law, right? Neither of them he has any problem marrying. So then you have the problem of Achos Zikaso, right? That each one is the sister of the other one who he is bound to by the Zika relationship. So the brother who, almost paradoxically, the brother who has a close relationship with one of the sisters can marry the other sister. The brother who has no relationship with either of the sisters cannot marry either sister because they're sisters to each other. Okay, so Salka Datin, so we have to assume that we're talking about where which one became became a Yibum candidate first. In other words, which brother died first? The one that was married to the mother-in-law, right? To the other brother's relation. So Yevamot, but so then why can't the fourth brother take either one? Why are they considered the sister of your Zika? Each one the sister of the other. Take the brother who's one of the widows is the mother-in-law, right? Let him marry the other one, right? And then the one who is his mother-in-law, now she's available to the fourth brother, right? She can also do even with the fourth brother. Because now there was a time when she was forbidden, right, to him because but once one of the sisters does yibum with the third brother, then it's okay for the fourth brother now. He has no longer any connection to that one who already did yibum, right? And there's one woman left, one widow left who's subject to yibum. Good, let him do yibum with her. Or Papa says, oh, we must be talking about the other way around, where the first one to die, the first widow is the one who's not related to anybody, any of the other brothers, right? And then the other one becomes a widow who is related, who is the mother-in-law of one of the brothers. So then, so even if he marries the other one, at the time of the death of the first brother, there was an obstacle, right? Sure, the obstacle was removed by the second brother marrying the one who's not his mother-in-law, but the original obstacle was never really dealt with. Okay, next part of the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer over Rabbi Shammai. This is what we mentioned before. Rabbi Eliezer said that the Stam Mishnah, the anonymous Mishnah, says both. If they went ahead and married them, the two sisters, the two subsequent brothers married the two widows, right? Then for the Mishnah said, call it off, right? Go, everybody get divorced, right? But Rabbi Eliezer says, but Shammai says that that's not required. But you can, the marriage can be maintained, and Beis Hillel said no, it can't. So Tanya, we have a brisa that says the same thing, that Beis Shammai says it's okay to keep the wives, and Beis Hillel says no, you have to divorce them. Rabbi Shimon says no, everybody can keep them, right? That's the exact opposite of our Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon says no, it's fine. Everybody agrees that it's fine to maintain that marriage. Abba Shaul says Kol hayalahem Beis Hillel b'davar zeh sheBeis Shammai omrim yosiu Beis Hillel omrim yikaimu. That Beis Hillel's opinion in this situation was lenient, right? Now, of course, we're going to ask, what's Abba Shaul adding here? Rabbi Shimon came up. So who does Rabbi Shimon follow? He is exactly against our Mishnah. Beis Shammai hainu Rabbi Elazar. If he follows Rabbi Shimon, if he follows Beis Shammai, who said that no, that they have to divorce them, so that's what Rabbi Elazar is saying. Beis Shammai says divorce, Beis Hillel says don't divorce. So if Rabbi Shimon is just following Beis Shammai, he's not adding anything to the conversation. He's just chiming in like Rabbi Eliezer. Beis Hillel, but if he holds like Beis Hillel, that then that's like Abba Shaul, right? So in other words, we already have what Rabbi Shimon, what Rabbi Eliezer, no, what Rabbi Shimon says that they should keep them. He's either following one opinion or the other, and for some reason, and the Gemara. The answer is obvious, that Rabbi Shimon says that everybody agrees that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel say that it's fine to maintain this marriage. That's what Gemara says. That both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel say that that the marriage can stay. Okay. The Mishnah continued, if one of the sisters was forbidden to one of the brothers, then he can't take that widow, but he can take the other sister widow. So Hatanina Chadazim, Gemara says, we already know this. What are you telling me anything new here? We already had in the first Mishnah, right? The sister who is like her, Yevamot, she does either chalis or yibum. So where's the stricha? We need both. If the Mishnah in the first parak had told us that you can do that, yibum is needed there. That was where there was only one there was only one case of Yibum, right? There was only one brother, right? So if there isn't any second brother, we don't have to worry. Here you might say that, you know what, there's a second brother, and you might say that don't even let the first brother do Yibum, because people might think that the second brother could have done Yibum, right? And maybe I'll say don't do it. But if we only had our case where there's two surviving brothers, here you could say that, yeah, we'll let one brother get married because the other brother, the rule is preserved in the other brother, right? The other brother, we're not letting him do it, right? So that should make it obvious to people. But if there's only one brother, then that doesn't really demonstrate the extent of the rule. So you have to tell us both cases that indeed do the. Okay, and then the Mishnah said Isur mitzvah, if there is a non-erva relationship. So for example, like a Kohen or Kohen Gadol who can't marry a widow at all, right? But it's not because of a relationship with a woman, it's because of his special sanctity, right? So then we say the sister needs chalitza but not yibum. So this we also had in the earlier Mishnah. Isur mitzvah, Isur kedusha, chalatzis lamas yavamas. We have that rule specifically, right? That if there is a non-erva relationship in the way of the yibum, then don't do yibum, do chalitza. So why says hasam isur mitzvah l'chuda, hacha isur mitzvah l'chosa. In the first parak, then that taught us that about the idea of the isur mitzvah, that it stands in the way of yibum, but not chalitza. Hacha isur mitzvah ba'achosa. Here we have the additional detail that there's the isur mitzvah, there's the mitzvah on the man not to marry this kind of woman, and you have the sister problem. Maybe the requirement for yibum is so strong it can overpower the prohibition against marrying, Kohen Gadol marrying a widow. So Kamash 1 tells you no, that prohibition stands in place. Don't do yibum because we have the alternative of chalitza. V'tis yamim, where it says, well, wait a minute. So it actually makes sense to say let me do yibum. Like why doesn't the yibum override the isur mitzvah? So the Gemara says, "Kevan midaraisa ram yachamei kapaga b'chozu kukasa." Oh yeah, this is a part of the question that since biblically there's a zika relationship, and so if he marries the other one, he's violating that zika relationship, right? He's marrying the sister of his zika. So maybe the whole idea of zika is only rabbinic anyway, right? Remember that that's just a rabbinic problem. So that the rabbis kind of take into account the potential relationship there. So maybe they would have said, okay, well, in the case of a Kohen Gadol marrying we don't want to cause him to marry or to even countenance marrying a widow. So therefore, we won't establish the rule in that case. Kamashma, no, they do establish the rule in that case. And even so, even though it's only a rabbinic idea that there's a connection to the sister, we're not going to let the yibum take place. Okay. Next case in the Mishnah. If one of the sisters was, if each of, so two brothers marry two sisters, and there's two more brothers surviving, they die, two more brothers surviving, but each one has a problem with one of the sisters. So brother A has a problem with widow one because of his relationship to her, whatever, mother-in-law or something, and brother B has a similar problem with marrying widow 2. Okay, so hatu amali. Now, why do we have to set up this scenario, right? Like, just tell us about the one brother. Like, what are you adding by saying if both of them, both of them have this relationship? You already established the principle with the one brother who has a relationship with one of the widows, right? That's what the rule is. It's the same, it comes out the same. What are you adding by setting up the situation where each brother has a relationship, has an ever relationship with one of the widows? Whereas it's tzricha, this is similar to what I said before. If we only knew the rule about where there's only one brother who has an issue, because then it shows that the second brother, he shows us the rule by not doing yibum with either sister, because he's a zika to both of them, right? And they're sisters. It's like a shame to come, but in the case of the two brothers, each of which has a relationship with one of the sisters, so I would think, oh, you know what? There's nothing that demonstrates this requirement. So like next time there's such a case where there's only one brother who has a relationship with one of the sisters, I might think, oh, the other brother is good. Right, so that's why the Mishnah tells us both cases. If the Mishnah only told us the two brother case, the case where each brother has a relationship with one of the widows, Adarabah would have said the opposite. Like each brother is demonstrating the rule to the other brother. But when there's only one brother has a relationship with one of the widows and the other does not have a relationship with either widow, I would have said that brother has a zika relationship with each sister. It's tzricha, so that was both cases. Okay, and finally the Mishnah concludes, Zohi Shamru, this was the principle, this is the case about what they said, that the sister, when there's two sisters in the Yibum situation, does either Chalisa or Yibum. So Zuhi Lumutemai. So like it's reading the Mishnah saying this is the case that demonstrates that, but there's some other case that doesn't demonstrate it. What is that? Lumuta Isra Mitzalazev, Isra Mitzalazev. That's if the two surviving brothers have a mitzvah relationship that precludes them from marrying one of the widows. So again, we're going to ask Khatulamali, why do you need to demonstrate both? It's the same thing, right? Same principle. What do you care if there's one brother has this problem or both brothers have this problem with one of the women? So when do we say? I might have thought that when do we say we don't let the mitzvah obligation, the mitzvah prohibition, if you will, stand in the way of the erva prohibition? That's where you have to be concerned that, oh, what if there's ever a case where there's two of them, then we might trip up, right? But if there is a second brother and he has no Isur relationship with either of the women, for one brother, he's got a problem where he can't marry one of the women, fine. Well, hi, okay, then both of them can do yibum. If there's two brothers with this problem with one of the widows, let each brother marry the other widow he doesn't have a problem with, right? Mashmalan. So the Mishnah says, no, we don't say that, because we want to demonstrate, for that there is a potential problem of the sister of your zika. Okay, now we're moving on to a bit of a different topic. No less complicated though. Amar Rabbi Yevamot. Rabbi Yehuda said, "L'chein tani Rabbi Chia." Rabbi Chia taught a similar brisa. So going back to the Mishnah of the 15 women that you can't be evil with because of your erva relationship. In all of those cases, you can apply the rule that the Mishnah says. If you can't marry one of the women because she's your mother-in-law, okay, but the other women, the other co-wives, you could marry, right? You could do yibum with one of them. And remember, you only need to do yibum with one of the women to let the whole group of them off, right? To end the obligation, because then the brothers' name can be carried forth, which is the whole purpose of this. And we can also apply the rule that If you have a sister who is also her in the same Yavam situation, can either do Chalitza or Yibum, right? So Rabbi Yehuda, so in other words, Rabbi Chia is saying that all of these, you can construct a scenario for all of these 15 cases of erva relationships where it applies to one of the brothers or both of the brothers. Rabbi Yehuda Matargim Milchama Zavelach. No, Rabbi Yehuda says the first few you can't. You can only start with the mother-in-law situation. But the first 6 cases, which is your daughter, your granddaughter, and your granddaughter-in-law, you can't construct the scenario. My tama, why? Because all these cases, right? If you want to construct a case where brother A is forbidden to the woman, but brother B is not forbidden to the woman, and these are all cases of descendants of the first brother, right? Then you can only construct that if the birth of the connecting generation was through a non-marital relationship. Okay, the Gemara calls it Bita Ba'onsin, meaning daughter of a rape victim, but it doesn't have to be that way. It could be any non-marital relationship, right? You have a child with somebody you're not married to, right? So in that case, the granddaughter through that child is forbidden to you, but not to your brother because you were never married to the mother. Okay, right. If you had been married to the mother, then it would be a problem for the brother as well. So right? We're not talking about, so Rabbi Chia would say, no, we're only talking about I'm only counting not all 15 cases as possible to set up with these crazy scenarios, but only the ones we're only dealing with normal cases where people are married to each other. Okay. But Abaye says, Rabbi Chia's statement could even apply to the daughter. Abaye says, no, we could be talking about whether a marital, a child from a marital relationship or a non-marital relationship. And so since we're including non-marital relationships to produce these children, we can include that in the Mishnah and say about the Mishnah that all of these you can find cases where one brother, is prohibited to one of the sisters and permitted with the other of the sisters in this situation. But Abaye continues that there's still one exception: the non-contemporary brother, right? The brother who was born after all these deaths occurred, right? That you can't find where one brother is permitted and the other brother is not. Because it's only according to Rabbi Shimon. Now remember that the rule about a brother who's born after the death of the first brother, of the brother who left the widow, right? So all the brothers who are around when that death occurs, they're required to do Yibum, right? But a brother who is born later, right? He was born after the death occurred, right? Then he never had, the way I think of it is, he never had the responsibility. He never had the responsibility of carrying on his brother's name, right? He still has the restriction of not marrying his brother's widow or his brother's wife, right? So he, the non-contemporary brother, cannot do Yibum, okay? But what happens if one of the other brothers does Yibum, right? And then the next brother is born, okay? So now he doesn't have the problem. So according to Rabbi Shimon, he doesn't have the problem of the dead brothers, the first dead brothers, having been married to this woman, because that was resolved by the Yibum. Okay, so a brother born after the Yibum took place doesn't have to take into account the fact that his oldest dead brother was once married to this woman, it's like, it's not a factor, okay? But we don't hold that way. We hold that it's still a factor. But since, according to Rabbi Shimon, you can remove that restriction by doing Yibum, right? By one of the brothers doing Yibum. Now that only applies if the brother was born after the Yibum took place.
Right.
What happens if the brother is born after the death of the oldest brother, right? The widow is still waiting for Yibum. The new brother is born, right? So then there was a time at which this newborn brother was forbidden to marry that widow, right? Because and so the fact that subsequently one of the older brothers does Yibum doesn't help him, right? So in that case, you could have the case where you could construct, so basically using that principle, and I feel like it wouldn't even be productive to describe the whole scenario, okay? But with that principle, you can construct a case where newborn brother A is permitted to do Yibum with one of the widows because in Rabbi Shimon's scenario, in Rabbi Shimon's opinion, there was never a prohibition for him because Yibum was already done, right? But brother B, newborn brother B could have been born in that interim period, right? Between the death of the older brother and the performing of Yibum, right? So you could construct a scenario where there are two newborn brothers, and each one is forbidden to one of the
Widows.
older widows and permitted to the other older widow, depending on when he was born in the sequence of death and Yibum of the widow. So yeah, so it could only happen according to Rabbi Shimon, because according to the other rabbis, like the newborn brothers are always forbidden, right? It doesn't matter that afterwards one of the older brothers did Yibum. That doesn't remove the problem. Only according to Rabbi Shimon is the problem removed. And so any newborn brothers that are after the death of the older brother are always forbidden to all the widows in question. Rav Sarfra from a Targum, but Rav Sarfra explains, no, you can actually construct a case even according to the rabbis. There's 6 brothers. I'll leave it to Rabbi Shimon, but only if according to Rabbi Shimon. So in other words, same thing, but he's saying, yeah, we will take Rabbi Shimon's opinion into account, according to Rabbi Shimon, that you can repair this forbidden situation by doing Yibum with one of the contemporary brothers, since you can construct that case. So you could even say that the case of non-contemporary brother, you can construct a case where non-contemporary brother A can marry widow 1 but not widow 2, and the opposite for non-contemporary brother B. And how do you remember this? The sequence would be, older brother dies, newborn brother A is born, and then Yibum is done on older brother A's widow, and then then older brother number 2 dies, newborn brother B is born, the widow of older brother 2 is done, does Yibum. So in that case, each of the newborn brothers has a problem only with one
Of the widows.
of the women and not the other. Okay, and here now the Gemara gets into the detailed case. Okay, so get ready. Reuven and Shimon brother, first two older brothers are married to 2 sisters. Levi and Yehuda Nusin Shnei Nachrios. And Levi and Yehuda are married to two other women, non-related to anybody. Meis Reuven Nolad Yisachar v'Yibam Levi. Now, older brother 1, Reuven, dies, and brother number 5 is born. And then Levi, the third brother, does Yibum on the first widow. Okay, so now the brother number 5 has a problem with widow number 1, because even though Yibum was done, but he was already born, before the Yibum was done. Okay, now Meis Shimon Nolad Zvulun v'Yibam Yehuda. Now, brother number 6 is born. So you have newborn number 2. He's Shimon. He is Zvulun. Same situation with brother number 2. Brother number 2 dies, waiting for Yibum. Brother number 6 is born. So his relationship to the first widow, right? Like it doesn't really matter, because she's already married to the third brother, right? So it's not non-contemporary anymore. Even though he was non-contemporary to the first brother, he's not non-contemporary to the second brother, the third brother, and he's already married to widow 1. Okay, so now what happens? Mesu Levi Yehuda. Now brothers 3 and 4 die. Right. So so now we have newborn brothers 5 and 6. So each one is forbidden to one of the original widows, and therefore, and each one of the original widows has a tzara, has a co-wife, right? So newborn brother 5 has a problem with widow number 1 and the co-wife, newborn, but not with the co-wife of brother 2, of widow 2, and vice versa for newborn brother 6. So that's where you can have that you're okay with one of the tsaras and not the other. So the Gemara quibbles with this a bit. Lamali Yibam Yehuda. Why do you have to have the detail that Yehuda, the fourth brother, married widow number 2? Below Yibam Yehuda, same would happen even if he didn't actually do Yibam. Right, because Shimon, the second brother's widow, can't marry newborn number 6. Right, it doesn't matter if Yibum took place or not, because when he was born, this woman was in a Yibum, was awaiting Yibum, and therefore he's always forbidden to her. So why is this Mishum Tzara? Because we were setting up a scenario where there was a co-wife, right? So. Right. So there's only a co-wife if you went ahead and did Yibum. Otherwise, then Yehuda's original wife is not a problem for the newborn brother. Okay. So okay, fine. So you've constructed this wild scenario where you have the co-wives are all accounted for, right? But the Mishnah also said the co-wife of the co-wife, right? Like through another husband. Right? How can you set that up? Well, that's just sure, add some more brothers, right? You could have 2 more brothers, and newborn brothers 5 and 6 also died. So you could have, the brothers 5 and 6 could have had other wives, which are the tzara of the problematic relationship. Okay. All right. Well, I think we have done our duty.
Our due.
Go with the next Mishnah. Thank you for sticking with it.
Okay. Have a good day.
The next Mishnahs are a little less. Well, the next one anyway. Now we'll see. Okay.